Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where it's my great pleasure and greatest joy to talk with people making a difference every single day. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, and I get to talk with cool guests, but this one is different. Today, I have actually a student, specifically a chiropractic student. Her name is Lucia Archuleta. She and I have been talking for a while now, and she's going through her process of her chiropractic training, and I thought it would be really cool to have a guest in who is right in the thick of it. And I don't know, we haven't practiced for this. We've not gone through a lot to understand of what we're going to talk about. I want to hear about her journey, because so many of you that follow the show, if you know our guests, they're people that are further along in their careers. And so when Lucia came, she and I are going to be hanging out for the rest of the day. When she came and asked me if she could just kind of be around and see what we do here and all that kind of stuff, I thought, yeah, that'd be great. But here's the price. Got to be a guest on the podcast so that people just like you listening or watching can find out what it's like to go through a professional school kind of training, or maybe inspire you to chase your dream and go after your goals. So without further ado, let's get going. And on that, Lucia, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everyone at Ramos Law. Ramos Law has played a substantial part of my life.
Yeah. Why don't you go into that before we talk about too much what you do? Because here's what I think. The story and the connection between your past, your connection to Ramos Law, and your current pursuit as a chiropractor, that might be a really cool way to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So how I came to found Ramos Law, I was in my undergraduate degree. I was pursuing being a PA, getting my CASPA hours done, set on the track to go to physician assistant school. However, toward the last half of my degree, I ended up getting in a car accident. A teenager, unfortunately, was on her phone, texting, didn't see she had a red light. I was going through my green light, and unfortunately, she hit me in the intersection. After she hit me in the intersection, my car was totaled. I had a concussion. I had a crazy amount of back pain. But at the time, the paramedic said, it's just from impact, nothing to worry about. I messaged my primary care provider. He said, just take, a leave. You should be fine. You'll be back to normal in no time. So I went with that, thought everything was going to be okay. Unfortunately, it was not. A few days after the accident, I couldn't even walk, couldn't get up. I was in so much pain, and, I had no idea what was going on, what was happening. Ended up going to the ER where they did CT scans, MRI, x-rays, everything, and they found a herniation at L5-S1. So I had a disc out, and it was just sitting right on that sciatic nerve.
Horrible. That's so painful.
Oh, absolutely. My left leg had no sensation in it. It was just horrible. However, the PTs checked me out at the ER, and they were like, she doesn't need surgery right now. She's good to go. We'll send her off to a neurosurgeon, and we'll go from there. So I ended up seeing the neurosurgeon, and that was a long process in itself. The neurosurgeon initially was like, let's try trigger point injections. Let's see if we can get the back to calm down a little bit with some steroids. Unfortunately, the trigger point injections didn't help, even though I had 26 injections. Didn't help. So then we went on to the epidural route, and he was like, this should calm your back pain down. Unfortunately, it didn't. All the while, I'm trying to, keep a student life going, trying to finish my undergrad degree. At the time, I was working as a nursing assistant, trying to get those hours for PA school. But unfortunately, I couldn't even help myself, let alone help a patient. So that, I started to reflect, oh man, I don't know if I can even go into this line of work anymore. So as my back pain started to get worse, the doctor was like, okay, let's just do surgery. At this time, I was 22 years old, going into back surgery. And that's not ideal for anybody at any stage of life.
Right.
So I ended up having the back surgery thinking, the back pain's going to go away. The leg pain's going to go away. I can go back to my normal life. I can go back to the plan. Unfortunately, after the back surgery, I still had back pain. And my neurosurgeon couldn't really give me a straight answer as to why that was. Unfortunately, his solution was to keep me on medication for the better part of my life. And for me, that really wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. So somebody in passing said, go see a chiropractor. And nobody in my family has ever seen a chiropractor. Nobody knew what chiropractors did. All I knew about the profession was what I had seen on social media and TikTok, and we don't necessarily get the best reputation on those platforms. So I was like, okay, let me go shadow someone, because at the time, shadowing physicians and PAs and nurse practitioners, that's what I knew. That's what I was comfortable with. So I went and shadowed a chiropractor.
And how did you find that person? That's important. Like, how did you decide who to shadow? Because there's so many chiropractors and there's lots of techniques. And so was there any thought process, or did you know someone who knew someone and you just happened to find that person? What was your thought there?
So the way I found this chiropractor, I went onto Google, typed in chiropractors, looked at ratings and reviews, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go see this person because they seem to be getting some type of positive feedback. So they have to be doing something right. So I went and shadowed this chiropractor.
And who was it?
It was Dr. John Davis. I'm sure he doesn't even remember me at this point, because it was like he's such a busy man, and it was like a spur of the moment type of deal.
Yeah.
But I got to go shadow him. And I learned a lot that day, because again, I'd never been exposed to the profession before. So seeing people come in with pain and essentially getting up within 5 minutes later feeling better, like, that was unreal to me. And at the end of our shadowing session, I told him about, my back pain, what was going on. And he had just kind of suggested, he's like, well, do you mind if I take a look? Like, really informal, nothing big. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Why not at this point?
Why not? I've had
How
everyone
long had
else.
it been since the accident until that shadow day? A period of weeks, months? How long had it been?
We're looking at around like 6 or 7 months.
6 or 7 months, okay.
So I was like, why not? Go for it. So he, took me through ranges of motion, kind of got a feel of what was going on, and just began to do just some work on me, just soft tissue work, a little bit of manipulation, like nothing too intense, nothing too crazy. And when I tell you that experience absolutely changed my life. It was like night and day. It was the first time I'd felt any type of pain relief in months. And it was undescribable, like, especially for someone who has never been manipulated, been adjusted, had any type of work or exposure to chiropractic. It was just insane. And then after that, I was like, I want to change someone's life the way this one person changed my life in a matter of minutes. So
Wow.
then I started researching, looking into chiropractic school, and found Cleveland Chiropractic, and that's where I'm going. That's
there
where
you go. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, I know you had mentioned that the law firm was playing a role in your recovery, so to speak, helping you find doctors, making sure medical bills got paid. Then you were connected with the law firm through, you have a great attorney, Ross, right? He was the one that kind of helped you through. So then did you notice that there was and I'm asking this now kind of for an interesting, selfish reason, did you notice the relationship between your healthcare providers and your legal providers in this ability to communicate, help find what was best for you, that kind of stuff? Did you notice that along your journey? Because after a car accident, there's so many things that people have to worry about, and it's just a nightmare to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ross was definitely like, he was not afraid of a challenge. He was not afraid to give me the help I needed anytime. Like, I would call him sometimes just practically in tears, just like, where are we in this process? Like, I'm in so much pain and I feel like nobody's there for me. But Ross was always there for me. He was always fighting to get me the best results. Like, when the trigger point injections didn't work, he was pushing the surgeon to do something else. When the back pain didn't go away, he was pushing to get another answer. So I always felt like Ross and then Ramos Law was always pushing to get me results, pushing to actually make me feel better. Like, it wasn't about getting a settlement at the end. It wasn't about a dollar sign. It was actually about making sure that I was, going to be able to do what I needed to do in the future, especially being so young at the time. So
Right. That is such a powerful story. When you then found the chiropractic experience, like, my chiropractic experience was a little bit different, and I'll share it with you, not to compare it, but to say how cool yours was. That once in a lifetime, like, I can't even tell you how many patients that I've had a chance to serve over these 3 decades where one adjustment made them feel better. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's amazing. Mine was different in that I got hurt playing football. I stuck my head down, and I'm in high school. I stuck my head down on a tackle and ended up couldn't move for a moment and ended up with neck pain, headaches, whatever. Go to the chiropractor, and I was there for a series of treatments. And so in between practices, I'd go to the doctor and this and that. And one day our English teacher says to me, hey, I want to know what you guys want to do with your future, and I want you to write about it. And so I had an appointment that day. So when I went into my chiropractor's office, his name was Dale Baird. I always give him a big shout out, and he was hugely instrumental in my life as well, where he goes, so how was school? And I said, it was good. He goes, what'd you do? Oh, I got asked to write this assignment about what I want to do. And he goes, you should be a chiropractor. And my dad had always told me, be a doctor, lawyer. And I, as a teenager, of course, being a teenager, was like, I'm going to do something else, right? Real estate, whatever. Anything you tell me to do, I got to do something else. But that day, when he said that, something in me, Lucia, also changed my life. But it wasn't because of a single visit. It was because of the experience that I'd had of getting better and of saying, man, wait, no shots, no drugs, no surgery. And people feel better? Wow. So that's how I started my journey in high school. So I just knew what I wanted to do. And so now taking it back to you, like that was my aha moment. Your aha moment was you want to help people the way you got helped. How did you then go about deciding to do the schooling, what school to go to? You researched schools. What was that acceptance journey like? Because some people might be in their journey right now thinking, I want to do something different, or I don't know where to go and what to do. And so you put the thought in to decide what to do and how to do it. How did that unfold for you?
Yeah, so once I was like, I think chiropractic is for me. That's what I want to do. So I started just researching schools. I was looking at, what are their board scores? What is their default rate? Are people actually happy in this program? And so Cleveland University in Kansas City, I decided, they have a tremendous board scores. They've been producing the highest scores for 6 years in a row now. Their default rate is down to 1% when it comes to like paying back your loans. And so I decided to take a visit and do the open house. And when I was at the open house, it just felt like home. It felt like the instructors, faculty, staff, everyone was there to actually turn you into a successful, knowledgeable doctor. It felt like, as opposed to like PA school and med school where you're competing for class rank, you're competing for residencies, you're competing against your classmates. Here, everyone is truly there to help you. As cliche as it sounds, everyone is there, to be a knowledgeable physician. And it felt like home. It felt like this is where I need to be. This is where, my journey needs to start. So.
Wow. Powerful. Mm-hmm. Here's how my journey started. My chiropractor went to Logan, so that's where I was going, right? Like I didn't put the thought into it. I'm so impressed by what you did. You mentioned for those people who have not been part of a healthcare journey, as far as on the academic side, I just want to clear up a term so that they know board scores. Board scores, for those listening or watching, are when there's national boards and state boards. So national boards for you to be able to move on to the next level of your training, you have to pass these boards. And then state board, and then there's a national board that actually you have to pass to get into a lot of states, that end board. And then a lot of the states then say, well, if you're going to come here, you got to pass a state board to show your competency and your proficiency and all that kind of thing. So that's what that means. But the fact that you actually took the time to go, I wonder what the board scores are like here. Like, that's impressive. So are you, by nature, kind of an academic person, a mind that thinks the details? Is that how your mind works?
Yes, absolutely. Especially my dad's a teacher, my grandma's a teacher, my stepmom's a teacher. So academics have always been, at the forefront of everything. So even when I was looking into PA schools, it was, comparing and contrasting, what's actually going to get you to the end goal. So when it came to chiropractic school, I just applied that same mindset. So beautiful.
Were you always interested in medicine? So you come from a lineage of teachers. How did you come to decide that healthcare was your path?
So it's twofold. So I come from either a lineage of teachers, and then everyone else in my family's law enforcement.
Oh, very cool. Well, please thank them on behalf of all of Ramos Law for their service. That's super cool.
Absolutely. So like growing up, watching them go through, two different, very different stresses, but at the end of the day, emotional stresses. For me, like, although those are rewarding careers for my family members, for me, that just didn't feel like where I need it to be. I wanted to be able to help someone and come home with an emotional stress that's more on the happy side, that, hey, I was able to make this person feel better today. Hey, I'm getting this person started on the track to healing, to wellness. So
what is the biggest, let's just call it the biggest thing you've gotten so far in your training? In other words, you're now going into what's called trimester 7. That's where student clinic starts. You're going to start treating students, and then you get your hands on students and make them feel better and figure out how it works there. And then you'll start moving into outpatient clinic, right? Is that where you're at in the program?
Correct.
And so when you started, is there anything that was just way different about the whole process, whether it's the philosophy of chiropractic or whether it's the rigors of training or the schedule that you keep? Is there anything you're like, holy crap, I didn't expect it to be like that?
Yes, absolutely. So when you go into trimester 1, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go. Not really expecting the courses to be as rigorous as they are. Again, at the end of the day, you're training to be a doctor and a knowledgeable one at that. So we're structured almost like the first year is structured almost identical to medical school. So you're taking your neuroanatomy, embryology, histology, and which surprises a lot of people that you're in these really core sciences. And when you walk in day one, you're hands-on some way, shape, or form. Either you're in the cadaver lab, you're in the force sensing lab, which is basically a lab full of tables that you're practicing, what it feels like to touch, a spine. Even though it's a plastic spine at the time, you're learning those, new motor skills. So transitioning now to being into Tri 7 from trimester 1, you're really starting to apply everything you've been building up. So now, like, you're learning how to identify those symptoms and relate them into a diagnosis, and learning how, if this patient is presenting this way and you do this orthopedic exam, then you can determine, this is going to be the best treatment plan for that patient. So going into trimester 7, now about to see my own patients, I'm nervous but excited. If I wasn't nervous, then I wouldn't care about what I was doing.
Yes,
so,
that's a great statement. I remember so long ago now when I got accepted to chiropractic school. To me, it was a huge deal because for me, school wasn't that hard, but it also wasn't that easy. So I had to apply myself, but it wasn't everything. I was in athletics and all these other things. And so I didn't have the easy pass to get in with my grades. Like, I had to struggle a little bit to be like, ooh, I hope I get in. And when I got in, it meant the world. Like, it was so big to me. But when I got there, I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. I didn't have that self-confidence that I was scholastically strong enough. I knew communication, I had it down. Caring, I was good. I just didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. Did you have any fears or apprehensions? I know you're a little nervous now going into patient care, but what about coming into that initial didactic or that academic phase? Did you have any big reservations that you had to deal with?
So I guess the first culture shock I had was seeing that course load when you first get your schedule. Because in undergrad, a full-time student is taking about 18 credits.
Yeah, and that's real strong.
Absolutely.
Real strong at 18.
In chiropractic school, your first trimester is 29 credits. So,
whole different deal.
Absolutely. So seeing that schedule for the first time, you're like, oh man, I'm used to taking, 3-4 classes, maybe a lab here and there. Now you're in school from 7:30 to 5:30. And it comes down to, am I going to have enough time to study? Am I going to have enough time to do my coursework? Am I going to have time to breathe? So that was my biggest reservation going into school was am I going to be able to manage all these courses and be successful in them?
So what did you do to manage that? This is, I think, something now everyone can use, whether they're already in a job, whether they're a student, whether they're considering this kind of thing. You had to create rituals, habits, routines to help you succeed in that rigorous, especially like I can feel now the lightness coming off because you're reflecting back on all of that. And I remember it very well. What were your habits, your rituals and processes that helped you manage all of that course load, plus still trying to have a life in whatever that looked like?
Yeah, so like I had mentioned earlier, like Cleveland, from when I first walked in, it felt like home. And that has remained throughout the entire program. Like as soon as you get there, well, you're assigned a mentor, which is an older student in the program, and they're gonna be your lifeline. You need study guides, you need, Quizlets, you need practice questions, everyone there is truly there to help you because we're not competing for anything. So that was a big help, was just relying on my student mentor to, kind of guide me through the program. And then on top of that, like when you're in class, like anytime you have like a free moment, anytime you get let out early, utilize that time to, review the lecture you were just in, review old material. But what really sets apart graduate school from undergrad is, I think now in graduate school, especially in chiropractic, everything you learn at this stage, they're telling you why you need to learn it and how it's going to apply to your career and to the program. Well, as compared to like undergrad, you're taking some general education courses, and although those courses can be fun and different, you don't know why you need them. You don't know how they're going to apply down the line. So I think that's what really makes that big course load manageable, is that everything you learn, you know why you're learning it and how you're going to apply it in the future. And a lot of the courses do tend to overlap as well. So in one course you could be learning about, the brachial plexus, and then in another course they're going to bring up, oh, this patient has nerve pain in their fingers. Let's think back to the brachial plexus, which you just learned about. So although it is a lot, they tell you, how it applies, why you're going to use it, and then it's going to keep coming up. So it's going to get cemented in your mind, and it's eventually going to become second nature when it does come up again.
Did you do anything with respect to habitual time blockages? One of the big things that I push for our team members here, and I work a lot with the leaders of this company at Ramos Law, to help them be as effective as they can with their teams. And one of the things we talk about is block scheduling, where you put time for specific things and you keep that time sacred. Have you noticed in your training, especially with that high course load, that you had the ability to do that, or with so much time it was difficult? Because I would imagine it's important for you to be able to exercise or move some way, and build in some social time and rest. You got to rest in some way so that you can perform, and then to do all the studies. Did you have a formal system, or do you have a formal system of working through that, or do you just take the day as it comes, grab it by the tail, and work through it?
So it's a little bit of a mix of both. When it's a heavy testing week, I always set aside time first thing in the morning to crack open the books, crack open the lecture. That way, I'm fresh going into the classes. I know what I'm like looking forward to, as opposed to looking at the material at the end of the day when my brain is fried, when I'm just exhausted mentally, physically. So especially during those heavy testing weeks, I like to wake up around 5 a.m. and then just devote 45 minutes to an hour to whatever subject I'm focusing on for that week. But definitely in chiropractic school, you do need to find time to, have a life outside of school. What my school does a really great job of is that we have an abundance of student clubs, and some are chiropractic related, some aren't. And those students obviously are going through the same thing you are, so you become a lifeline for each other, and you find activities to go and do with each other outside of school, just to take a breather and, just decompress before you go back and hit the books pretty hard.
Well done. I love that. So now you're in Tri-7, you've gone through the physiology, the anatomy, you've gone through the biochem, all that stuff is now in your rear view. That's in the first, year or so. Now you're learning techniques. Now you're going to start applying them. Is there any magic or super amazing lessons that you've learned about not only your body, but the human body from the training that you've had so far that you didn't even have an idea about before you entered the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially when you're really getting into adjusting and doing that soft tissue work, like you really begin to appreciate like different body types. My partner right now, she in clinic, like you never know it by looking at her, but she's probably the most flexible person I've ever seen, and she's actually one of the hardest people to adjust. So you really learn that like this profession is full of definitely like hills and valleys when it comes to your adjusting skills. So you definitely learn to like roll with the punches. If you know, don't do a successful adjustment this go round, you learn to, you know, take a step back, let's add a modification, and then let's try it again later. So
nice. I love that. And for those who may not be familiar with the term adjustment, that's what we chiropractors use to say that we're going to take a joint and we're going to put it through a certain range of motion so that if it wasn't moving before, it's moving better now, or it is adjusted. And so that just a matter of housekeeping on clarification there. But adjusting, what have you found adjusting to do for the people that you've worked on and for yourself? We talked about earlier your story with soft tissue work and adjustment helping you in minutes. What hadn't worked for months, all of a sudden you gained some liberty and freedom of motion and decrease from pain. What else have you found the adjustment seems to do for the patients that you're working on?
So definitely, like, especially seeing the student population, you know, we're sitting all day long, we're hunched over, we're looking at a screen all day long, and physically, obviously that takes a toll on you, but mentally it just drains you. So when I get adjusted, I know once I get adjusted, not only am I feeling that physical relief, but it feels as if, you know, my mentality is restored, my emotion is restored, just adding that range of motion and kind of restoring that wellness just completely adds to every other aspect as well, not just the physical part.
That's great. So in other words, get checked, like exercise. This is what I used to tell my patients. There are certain things you need to do every day. You need to drink water. You need to get rest. You need to take care of yourself mentally. And you do it every day. If you do it every day, you're healthier. If you get adjusted when you're healthy, it keeps everything moving healthy instead of having to get work done because you're in pain, right? Like taking care of your teeth and all these other cool metaphors.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am interested in knowing your stress management program or plan. What do you do to manage the stress? Because like you said, the coursework is intense. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of pressure. And while you're not necessarily competing with the kids in your class, or the kids, it's kids to me, with the classmates that you have, you might not be competing with them, but you're still training to be a doctor. And there's a lot that goes to that, a lot of responsibilities. Do you have an active stress management program or plan that you use to keep yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally healthy?
Yes, absolutely. So it goes back into just like, you know, like you were saying, like working out is an important part of, you know, maintaining that wellness. Like as a former athlete, I used to play basketball, so I still make time to try to go play basketball. I still make time to try to, you know, go work out, lift weights. So that definitely, you know, helps with the stress part. But again, like the people you go to school with, they're your lifeline. They know what's going on. Like you can tell your family, like, hey, like this is my course load. This is what I have to go through on a daily basis. But nobody truly is going to understand other than the people who are experiencing it with you. So again, it goes back to like just relying on these people as your lifeline. So I'm one of the heads of sports council. So we make it a point every trimester to try to get, you know, Cairo Games up and running, which Cairo Games is, you know, all the chiropractic schools come together and compete in whatever sport we choose. Or like a lot of us play in a sand volleyball league every week. Just having those set aside times to like do something other than study, do something other than look at the lectures. So
good. Interesting story. The Cairo Games started when I was in chiropractic school. It was started at Logan by a guy named Carm Verk, who was my next door neighbor. And so it was his kind of brainchild. He was from Canada. Wow. And so all of us got together and put on the first Cairo Games with the folks from Canada, and I think Palmer were maybe, I know those two schools were for sure with us, and we had built a sand volleyball pit at Logan.
Wow.
And so everyone came down, and we had volleyball and basketball and whatever for the Cairo Games. And to hear, I didn't even thought about that in a long time. So to hear that it's still going, that's over 30 years.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
So how important is it for you, Lucia, to be involved in these other things outside of school, particularly like you mentioned, the sports, whether it's sports injuries club or these kinds of things? What does that bring to round out your experience as a future provider and as just a human being?
So it's definitely important. In undergrad, I was not really involved with like a ton of clubs. Especially like when I was, playing college basketball. It just never felt like it was something I wanted to be a part of. But in chiropractic school, it like completely changed. Being a part of these clubs definitely, like, not only does it give you that mental break that you need, but it helps you like learn how to communicate with people, learn how to network with people, and learn to develop that like social component that's not really thought of when you think of going into a healthcare program. But that's essentially one of the most important parts, is being able to communicate with your patient, being able to communicate, with the people around you. So it definitely enhances those skills.
Nice. Would you say the same holds true for basketball? When college basketball is no joke, right? No matter what college, no matter what size, if you're playing college ball, you're a good athlete, a good player, and there's a lot of demands on your time to be able to complete that whole picture. What lessons did basketball bring you to help you be who you are now as a budding young doc, getting ready to go into that side of your life, and a great student? Is there anything that you can take lessons from basketball into where you're at now?
Oh, most definitely. So growing up, my dad always used to preach, when it came to basketball, you can control two things no matter what's going on in the game. You control your effort and you control your attitude. And that has definitely carried through me through every hardship I've been going through. How you respond to something, that's completely on you. No one else is responsible for how you feel and how you react. But if you keep a positive attitude and you really put in all the effort, you do the best you can, that's what's really going to set you aside in the situation. It's all about perception and how you look at things. If you go into optimistically, you're regardless of the outcome, you're gonna be okay. So
that's awesome. So what are you most looking forward to in this next? So there's 10 trimesters in the program?
Correct.
What are you most looking forward to in this, I'll call it the last block, the final block, where now it's more about clinic and it's more about honing your skills and learning all of these things that it takes to be a great doctor of chiropractic? Is there anything that you're really excited about?
I'm looking forward to just treating people. I want to have someone, I don't want them to come in pain, but that is our client population. But if they come in pain, being the tool that they need to help them get out of pain, to help them restore that part of their life that, they thought that they, might not ever see again. Like, I know I definitely felt that. When I was going through my back problems, there are times where I would think, am I ever going to be normal again? Am I ever going to be pain-free again? So if I can implement even just an ounce of that in somebody, that is what this profession is about. That is what I'm here to do. So
that is so awesome. I want to take a rewind in our conversation to your accident. I didn't realize the level of basketball player that you were. If you're talking 6 months to 7 months, there had to be some sort of overlap, more than likely, between your injured pain and a basketball season. Was there something in there? Did that affect your basketball life?
So at that point, I had already decided to stop playing basketball because I was really focused on getting into PA school and meeting those required hours.
Gotcha.
And so at that point, it didn't interfere with my college basketball career because I'd already walked away from it.
Got it.
But I still have love for the game today. Like, I still want to play. I still want to be involved in basketball in some way, shape, or form. So just taking away that, athletic side of me, it really hurt. Like, it really affected my mentality, because my entire life was always revolved around sports and exercise, and taking that component away from my life really took a mental toll on me.
I can imagine. What's the internal competitive fire that you have to get this done as an athlete and someone who comes from this beautiful philosophy that your dad taught you of the two things that you can control, your effort and your attitude? Do you find for you to go, are you in the competitive zone, or are you a person that says, hey, keep my head down, do my thing, do my job, push my limits, and everything is going to work out?
So that competitive flame has never died in me. So when it comes to school, although, again, we're not competing against our classmates, but I'm competing against myself. That's the only way I'm going to get better. That's the only way I'm going to go from being a decent adjuster to a good adjustment, to a good adjuster, to a great adjuster. So being able to set goals for myself, and then when I achieve those goals, set another one. So that way I can just keep going. I'm someone who is, I want to be better than I was yesterday. So keeping that competitive flame just to push myself, I think I'll always have that attribute.
Great answer. Love that so much. Do you have mentors, people that help guide you along the way? Has that been a big part of this process besides teachers, or maybe it is teachers? I know you keep talking about the lifeline of the community of your colleagues and your classmates. Is there wisdom that comes down from people that you look at, either that you know personally and professionally, or that you maybe read books on, or tapes or seminars or that kind of thing?
So as you know, doctor, I'm always reaching out to docs, trying to just learn from them. In Kansas City, when I do have some free time, I actually work at a chiropractic clinic, and Dr. Finan and all the doctors there are so open to teaching, and they want to help you. They've been through it, they're on the career portion of it, they're 5, 10, 15 years in. They know what it's like, so they're always open to my questions. They're always looking to help me. They've just been such an influential part of my journey, and even, me and you have had several phone calls. I'm always texting you. I'm always, trying to get in touch with you. Learning from experienced doctors and who are out here, not only being successful, but are actually changing people's lives. Like, those are the people I want to learn from, because they've cracked the code. They know what they're doing, and they love what they're doing. And I want to be around people who love this profession like I love this profession. And even outside of just like talking to doctors, like I call my mom and my grandma almost every day, because again, outside of the chiropractic world, like, they're going to be there for my mental health. They're going to be there for my emotional health. And they've always been there for whatever I needed. So having, my core group in chiropractic, and then having my core group outside of chiropractic, have really just made this program just so not easy, but as stress-free as it can be while you're in it.
Yes, I can imagine that. I remember that I had that same kind of feeling. I had people inside the four walls of the school, we'll call it, and then I had people outside that were my age or older or younger that were all part of me getting through that. Boy, this takes me back. Lucy, this takes me back. So, final question for you. Is there one piece of advice that you've so far in your young life that you've been given or that you've learned that you found to be absolutely fundamental to who you are today that you'd like to share with us?
Oh man, that's a tough question, because I've as you can tell, I've definitely tried to learn as much as I can from everyone. I guess it does. It definitely goes back to attitude and effort for sure. But definitely just try to be better than yesterday.
Yeah.
Just do what you can to push yourself, and better than yesterday might not seem like a huge jump, but when it comes to the grand scheme of things, it's all going to add up and it's going to make a substantial difference.
You know what? You are making a difference. And the name of this podcast is the Difference Makers Podcast. You're making a difference. You made a difference in my life today, Lucia. I want to tell you that, like, just your energy and enthusiasm and freshness for what you're doing, it really motivates and inspires me. I hope that our listeners, if you guys are watching or listening, if this inspired you, go do something cool. Go do something hard. Take a challenge. Know that your life's going to be better. If this is a message that someone else can use, pass this on, whether it's the video version, the podcast, pass this along so that someone can share from Lucia's experience and what she's doing. So Lucia, thank you. I appreciate you being here so much. We're going to go have a great day now.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right, let's go get it.
Alrighty.